There are moments when watching the Spider-Verse films where your brain kind of gives up trying to process everything. You've got multiple spider people, different animation styles colliding in the same frame, scenes moving at a speed that should be borderline overwhelming, and yet none of it feels confusing. None of it feels cluttered. Instead, it feels controlled, like art in motion. The Spider-Verse films are visual chaos pretending to be organized, or maybe it's the other way around. Every frame is packed with detail. Every character moves differently. Every scene has something happening in the foreground, background, and somewhere in between. And somehow your eye always knows where to look. That's not by chance or luck, but by design. Because underneath all of that noise, there's structure holding everything together. Every movement has intention. Every cut has clarity. Every character is doing something specific at all times. And once you start noticing that, you stop seeing chaos and start seeing control. Miles is a character built around uncertainty. He doesn't start confident. He doesn't start capable. He starts overwhelmed. Miles is constantly being pulled in two directions. His father's expectations, his uncle's influence. And that defines how he moves, talks, and reacts. His body language, early on with the slouched posture, hesitant movements, unfinished sentences, shows that he's not comfortable in his own skin yet. The What's Up danger scene isn't just a cool moment. It's a transformation. Miles stands at the edge, and for once he's not being pushed, choosing to jump instead. As he falls, the camera flips, turning the drop into a rise. But what really sells it is the animation. As his movements become cleaner, swings gain rhythm and hesitation disappears. The glass shattering beneath him represents breaking through fear. From that moment on, he's not reacting anymore, but acting. The Spider Society chases chaos on the surface. Hundreds of spider people. Endless movement, but Miles stands out because he doesn't follow patterns. While others swing predictably, he uses walls differently, redirects midair, and creates unconventional routes. There's a moment where he uses a train and surrounding structures to break line of sight. That's adaptation, not just survival. And visually, he contrasts the coherent, organized movement of the Spider Society to show that he's improvisation and a system built on control. This Peter Parker is the ideal Spider-Man. Confident, capable, and fully formed. His design reflects the clean, classic suit, smooth, controlled movement, sharp, polished animation. He seems complete in a way Miles isn't in the first film. When Peter meets Miles, the contrast is immediate. Peter is calm and reassuring. Miles is unsure and overwhelmed. Peter already knows who he is. For Miles, that moment sets the standard. During the Collider fight, even while injured, Peter stays focused on stopping Kingpin. He gives Miles a responsibility and then dies. No long goodbye or build up. Peter represents what Miles thinks Spider-Man should be. Losing him removes guidance and replaces it with pressure. Peter B is the opposite of Miles' Peter. His design reflects it, slightly out of shape, messy suit, slower, heavier movement. He feels human, not ideal. Peter's past is defined by failure. His relationship with MJ didn't work, not because he didn't care, but because he couldn't hold it together. He's Spider-Man after things fall apart. Peter B mentors Miles through trial and error, not perfection. He stumbles, jokes, and fails, but stays honest. Instead of giving clean answers, he pushes Miles to figure things out himself, teaching him that being Spider-Man is about resourcefulness and getting back up. Eventually, he reconciles with MJ, so by the time he returns and across the Spider-Verse, he has Mayday, which complicates things. He's now juggling being a mentor to Miles, being a father and aligning with the Spider Society. He's no longer lost, but he's not fully stable either. He's trying to balance everything at once, because now there's something to lose. Gwen is an emotional lens. Her world doesn't just reflect reality, it reflects how she feels about it. Gwen is defined by isolation. She's experienced loss and now keeps people at a distance to avoid repeating it. Her movements are controlled, but emotions aren't. In her opening scene for Across the Spider-Verse, the entire environment shifts based on her emotional state. Calm moments depict soft, controlled color palettes, tension shows sudden splashes of chaotic color. Conflict emphasizes clashing tones that don't settle. When she plays the drums, it's released not just music. Each hit corresponds with color bursts, visual distortion, and emotional spikes. When she meets her father, the scene gradually escalates. At first, the colors are stable, framing is controlled. But as the conversation becomes more intense, colors bleed into each other. Backgrounds lose structure. Lighting becomes unstable. You're seeing the tension as much as hearing it. And when things finally break, the environment reflects that emotional rupture. Uncle Aaron is the bridge between two versions of Miles' life. He represents freedom without responsibility and encourages Miles to be himself, but doesn't guide him. When he's revealed to be the Prowler, the shift in tone is immediate. The music changes, pacing slows, Miles realizes the truth and everything stops feeling safe. In his death scene, Aaron doesn't go out as a villain. He hesitates. He lowers his weapon. He chooses Miles. That hesitation becomes the catalyst for Miles' transformation. Jefferson represents structure, rules, order, responsibility. From his perspective, Miles is drifting. Jefferson doesn't understand what Miles is going through. So, he defaults to discipline, pressure, and expectation like any good father. During the closed-door conversation, Miles is separated from him physically and emotionally. Jefferson speaks without knowing the full truth as he expresses belief, love, and concern. His tone shifts from authority to vulnerability. This is a father trying to reach his son, and the fact that Miles can't fully respond makes it more impactful. Across the Spider-Verse is where Jefferson's role becomes something bigger, because according to the Spider Society, Jefferson is supposed to die as part of a canon event. The idea being every Spider-Man has to lose someone like this. But here's what makes this different. Miles has already lost someone. Uncle Aaron. Already gone through that turning point, and yet the system says it still has to happen again. This exposes the flaw in the entire metaphysical idea of canon events in the Spider-Man mythos. It treats growth like a checklist, the death of an uncle followed by the death of a police chief. When Miles understands that his dad is next, the tone shifts instantly. This becomes personal. He's not trying to save the world. He's trying to save his father. Spider-Noir is a commitment to a completely different visual language. His animation is a black and white palette, high contrast lighting and exaggerated shadows. He moves like an old film reel, slightly stiffer, more deliberate, almost frame-stepped. He examines a Rubik's Cube like it's an alien object. The humor works because he's completely serious as his presence reinforces every spider belongs to a different world. Spider-Ham operates on different physics. His style is a squash and stretch motion, exaggerated reactions and Looney Tunes timing. He pulls a mallet out of nowhere, hits an enemy and no one questions it, because his reality follows different rules. The film doesn't try to normalize him, just lets him exist as is. Penny introduces a different genre with anime-inspired expressions, sharper emotional exaggeration and mechanical movement through her spider suit. The mech moves with weight, mechanical delay and precision, while Penny moves more expressively. That contrast creates a layered character comprised of human emotion and mechanical power. Aunt May in Spider-Verse isn't fragile, but experienced and aware. She casually introduces Miles to a hidden base with no buildup or shock. She's already lived through this world with her calmness reinforcing. This isn't new to her, and that quiet confidence adds depth without needing much screen time. Kingpin in Into the Spider-Verse is introduced as a focused mastermind. At the center, everything he does is defined by loss. When his family sees him in his true environment, they leave but then die tragically, and that's the part he can't accept. Instead of confronting his choices, actions, and consequences, he looks for a version of reality where none of those matter. The Collider is the physical representation of that mindset. Everything about it is excessive, unstable, overwhelming. It doesn't feel like something that should exist. As it activates, the animation starts to distort. Colors bleed, space bends, structure breaks. Kingpin himself reflects that distortion. His proportions are unnatural. His size dominates every frame. He doesn't visually fit into the environment. He doesn't belong in the world he's trying to control. Kingpin's goal to build and use a reality-bending collider to find an alternative version of his family is an ethical dilemma. Because in order for his plan to work, reality itself becomes expendable. Other universes are collateral and other lives are irrelevant. Even the versions of his family he's pulling in are substitutes, but he treats them like they're interchangeable, like people can be replaced if you try hard enough. Kingpin believes if he gets them back, everything is fixed. But what he's ignoring is why they left in the first place. So even if the collider works, the outcome wouldn't, because the problem was never their absence, but him. Kingpin loses because his entire plan is built on denial. The more he pushes, the more everything breaks. At the end, when he finally sees versions of his family again, they don't see him as someone to return to. Instead, the reason they left. And for the first time, there's no distortion, collapsing worlds or multiverse interference, just clarity. Miguel O'Hara, aka Spider-Man 2099, is the most ideologically driven character in Across the Spider-Verse. His entire worldview is built around one idea, the canon event, that certain moments of loss, suffering, and sacrifice aren't just common across Spider-Man, they're required. According to him, the system matters more than the individual, because without those moments, everything falls apart. And on the surface, that almost makes sense, because we've seen it. Spider-Man stories are built on loss, but Miguel takes it further. He doesn't just recognize the pattern, he enforces it. He believes in it because he's trying to justify what happened to him. Because unlike every other Spider-Man, Miguel wasn't bitten by a radioactive spider. He didn't stumble into the role, he forced it. Miguel inserted himself into another universe, a life that wasn't his, a family that wasn't his. For a moment he had the life he wanted, the connection he was missing, until it collapsed. That world didn't reject him slowly. It broke, and he lost everything. That moment redefined how he sees reality, because now he believes deviation literally means destruction. So instead of processing that trauma, he builds a system around it. This is physically shown during the chase scene when he moves differently than everyone else. Aggressive, direct, and relentless. He doesn't adapt, he forces, which is in contrast to Miles, where he's not trying to understand but correct him. Rio represents acceptance. She isn't trying to shape Miles into someone else. She isn't constantly asking Miles to live up to expectations or become the perfect student or perfect son. She listens before speaking. Throughout both films, Rio becomes Miles' emotional safe place. Whenever the weight of two different lives begins pulling him apart, she reminds him that he doesn't have to earn love by becoming someone else. She already believes in him. One of the quietest scenes in Across the Spider-Verse ends up carrying the entire emotional foundation of Miles' journey. There's no villain, collapsing building, or ticking clock. Just a mother and her son together on a rooftop overlooking Brooklyn. Rio notices that something is bothering him before he says a word. She doesn't interrogate him or demand answers, but meets him where he is emotionally. She tells him to not be lost trying to be someone else. It's a simple line that represents the thesis statement for Miles' character arc, because everyone else in his life is unknowingly pulling him toward a different version of himself. Jefferson wants discipline. Aaron encourages freedom without responsibility. Peter B. wants him to become Spider-Man. Miguel later wants him to follow destiny itself. Rio never asks him to become anything. She simply tells him to become himself. The scene is as effective visually as it is emotionally. The city lights stretch quietly into the distance. The camera barely moves. The music softens almost to a whisper. For one of the only times in either film it isn't trying to overwhelm you with kinetic animation or breathtaking action. It slows down and lets silence do the work. When the movie finally explodes back into colorful action minutes later, that rooftop conversation is still sitting in the back of your mind. Because every leap Miles takes after that, every swing and impossible decision, is rooted in what Rio told him. Spider-Punk in Across the Spider-Verse is one of the most visually aggressive characters depicting controlled chaos and motion. He is shown with the collage-based design, inconsistent frame rates, and constantly shifting outlines. Even when standing still, his design is moving. Posture shifts, textures change, nothing locks into place. That reflects his philosophy of rejecting structure entirely as his animation breaks the rules of the film. The Spider Society is built on canon events, fixed outcomes, predetermined paths. Hobie rejects that idea completely, so when he helps Miles, it's consistent with his character, which makes him one of the only ones who doesn't hesitate. When we first met the Spot in Across the Spider-Verse, he's awkward, his powers feel clumsy, his portals are inconsistent. He can barely control what he's doing. He doesn't feel dangerous. The film sets everything up during the convenience store scene. The fight is comedic on the surface. Miles is confused. The Spot is frustrated, but his portals begin to sync up. His timing improves and his movements become more deliberate. The moment he starts predicting Miles' movement is the shift. The scene transitions from, "This guy is a joke," to "This guy is learning." Miles is unaware that the Spot is a villain he inadvertently created through the Collider explosion, which gives him the classic nemesis created by the hero trope. Spot is a side of the coin that shows how improperly processing loss can lead to villainous tendencies in the absence of hope or structure. The animation evolves with his threat level, so by the time he becomes a real villain, the visual language has completely shifted to menacing and chaotic as his color palette and movement becomes more disorientating and erratic. Miles' alternate self is one of the most unsettling parts of Across the Spider-Verse, because he feels real. This version of Miles never became Spider-Man, and more importantly, he grew up without Jefferson. Jefferson represents structure and direction. Without him, Miles loses the guidance that would have grounded him. That absence creates space for him to become the Prowler, not as a twist, but as a natural outcome. Without that structure, there are fewer boundaries, more environmental influence, a harder worldview. He's more guarded and controlled, His design is composed of a darker palette, sharper features, and a rigid posture. Even his expression is more reserved. When he confronts Miles, there is no big speech, just silence and recognition. Miles is seeing what he could have become. Every frame of animation for the Spider-Verse films has a purpose, which is function more than style. For example, Miles starts at a lower frame rate, and as he improves it smooths out. You don't notice it directly, but it reinforces growth. Each character moves differently. Miles is evolving fluidity, Gwen is expressive motion, Miguel is rigid aggression, to name a few. In the Collider fight, there are multiple characters with different abilities, but everything is readable. Movement has direction, hits have impact, focus is guided visually. Your eyes always know where to go. In Into the Spider-Verse, Miles is painting with his uncle. Music's playing. He's relaxed. But look closer. The graffiti is unfinished, lines aren't clean, and the colors clash slightly. This mirrors his identity because he doesn't fully know who he is yet. On the ride to school, Miles leans his head against the glass. The city moves around him. Everything feels distant. He's physically present, but mentally somewhere else. No dialogue needed, as framing says everything. In Across the Spider-Verse, the Mumbattan collapse is one of the most visually dense sequences in the film. Buildings fold in on themselves, gravity shifts, perspective breaks. But through all of it, you can still follow Miles, because the chaos is controlled, and more importantly, it reflects the stakes. Reality is literally breaking, because the story is breaking its own rules on the Spider-Man mythos on canon events. Spider-Verse synchronizes the animation, writing, and action. Every movement reinforces character. Every color reinforces emotion. Every action reinforces the story. And because of that, nothing feels disconnected. It's impressive, stylish, entertaining, and cohesive. It makes the visuals and storytelling the same thing. And once you see that, it's hard to go back to regular style animation. It all serves a purpose, and that's why it feels different, integrating all of these elements of storytelling, action, and animation seamlessly. And if you made it this far, consider liking, subscribing, and commenting below. Thanks for watching.